All right, everybody, it's 6:30, so I'm going to go ahead and get the meeting started. I call to order the Gladstone City Council meeting for December 8th, 2020. It's 6:30 p.m. Good evening, everybody. Per the Governor's Executive Order 20-16 regarding compliance with Oregon's public meeting laws, the City of Gladstone is abiding by social distancing requirements during the coronavirus pandemic. This City Council meeting will be conducted virtually using the Zoom platform. The Zoom access instructions can be found on the meeting agenda. Members of the City Council, staff, and the public all have access to this call. Public comment requests were accepted prior to noon today and were to include your topic and phone number. Tonight, our consent agenda includes approval of the November 10th, 2020 meeting minutes, approval of the October bank balances, budget report for the period ending October 31st, 2020, approval of the October check register, legal costs on projects, department head monthly reports for November 2020, certification of the November 2020 elections, approval of updated traffic signal maintenance and transportation engineering services intergovernmental agreement, also referred to as an IGA, with Clackamas County, approval of an extension of the agreement between Oak Lodge Water District and the City of Gladstone for the provision of domestic water, sanitary sewer, and stormwater services, approval of Resolution 1185, amending Resolution 1183, declaring a state of emergency regarding COVID-19 until March 31st, 2021. Our regular meeting agenda includes Resolution 1186, a resolution adopting a revised master fee schedule and repealing Resolution 1182, adopting a revised master fee schedule related to utility rates effective January 1st, 2021, Resolution 1187, adopting the Gladstone Nature Park Master Plan, a public hearing for Ordinance 1507, amending Chapter 1.12 of the Gladstone City Charter and Municipal Code to add language regarding custody and use of the city seal and city insignia, Resolution 1188, condemning mistreatment and bullying directed at all people withstanding of their color, sex, national origin, sexual orientation, or age, and affirming the City of Gladstone's commitment to equity, appointments to boards, commissions, and committees. Tammy, could you please call the roll?
Councillor Ripley,
Yes.
Councillor Neese,
Present.
Councillor Tracy,
Present.
Councillor Reisner,
Here.
Councillor Todd,
Here.
Councillor Mercero,
Here.
Mayor Stemple.
Here. Thank you. Are there any agenda additions or corrections?
I have nothing further, Mayor. Thank you.
All right. So the first item is the consent agenda. Do we have any discussion? And since this is a weird screen, I'm just going to call everybody individual. Councillor Neese,
No, I'm okay.
Councillor Reisner,
No, I'm good.
Councillor Mercero,
I'm okay.
Councillor Ripley,
I'm good.
Councillor Tracy,
Yeah, Mayor, on page 4, under my statements, there should be a correction. I meant to say germane, I said tangential, and I also didn't indicate it that it was, that comment was focused on the marginalized and underrepresented community that lives in our city. So I'd like that correction for the record if I could.
all right.
Thank
Do
you.
you have that noted, Tammy?
Yes, we will make sure and get that noted. Thank you.
Thanks, Tammy. It's page 4, top paragraph. Thank you.
All right, anything else, Councillor Tracy?
No, thank you, Mayor.
Councillor Todd?
No.
All right. Would somebody like to make a motion then with those corrections from Councillor Tracy, please?
So
I'll make a motion that we accept it with the changes that Councillor Tracy recommended.
thank you. I'll second.
All right, motion was made by Councillor Neese and seconded by Councillor Tracy. Any further discussion? I don't hear anybody. Tammy, could you do a roll call vote, please?
Counselor Mercero,
Yes.
Counselor Todd,
Yes.
Counselor Reisner,
Yes.
Counselor Tracy,
Aye.
Counselor Neese,
Yes.
Counselor Ripley,
Yes.
Mayor Stemple.
Yes, it passed. Thank you. Next item is correspondence, and it looks like we have two things. City Administrator Betts, could you highlight those for us, please?
Yes, you received a letter from Laureen Schultz in your packet, and also a thank you letter from the Oregon Conference of Seventh-day Adventists for our contributions during the wildfires.
Well, we should certainly be thanking them. They stepped up and they took on so many people and so much responsibility. It made a huge difference for those people being evacuated. So thank you to them very much. Would anybody like to say anything on these two items? I don't hear anything. Thank you. So next, we're going to be moving on to our regular agenda. But as usual, a couple of things before we start. First, for those folks that would like to speak, the deadline to accept comments was noon today. As a reminder, we allow 3 minutes for public comment unless there are special circumstances and the additional time has been approved by staff beforehand. Second, as I do before every meeting, I would like to say a few words regarding the City Council. The most important limitation we have sitting here is that we are representing the citizens of Gladstone, not our own personal agendas and beliefs. There have been many times when a decision being made doesn't align with what we would like personally, but we have made a decision based on what is best for the city as a whole. That doesn't mean that our personal beliefs have changed, just that the city's needs were more important. As we discuss and consider matters, there are laws and rules we have to use as the basis of our decisions. These start at the federal and state level, filter down to our city's comprehensive plan, city charter, codes, and ordinances. We do not have the luxury of randomly making decisions, but instead we have to be consistent and take a path that is defensible. We appreciate you taking the time to call in and participate in this process. I believe that we will have everyone's phones muted until it is your time to speak. And if we are not able to mute your phone, please do so. There's a lot of distractions on these meetings, and that would be just one less distraction. My goal is to keep this meeting respectful and engaging, and I hope all of you can help us do that. First item on our agenda is number 11, Resolution 1186, which is a resolution adopting a revised master fee schedule and repealing Resolution 1182, adopting a revised master fee schedule related to utility rates effective January 1st, 2021. Staff?
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm going to give you a little bit of an introduction before we hand it over to Public Works Director Jim Wynot. If you look back to the questions that were raised at the 2016 Town Hall meeting that we had, antiquated infrastructure in Gladstone was the main concern. Specifically, we were asked, why are we so far behind? What has been done over the last 30 years? Or should we say, what has not been done? Well, the city of Gladstone is behind on infrastructure because of the lack of funds, funding priorities, and past practices. With the current leadership, both elected and staff, the city is planning ahead to ensure the citizens of Gladstone recover, move forward, and yet be fiscally responsible. As leaders in the community, you are tasked with improving the livability in Gladstone, providing people a high quality of life to enjoy diverse businesses, vibrant and safe neighborhoods with outdoor activities and quality infrastructure, which means water and sewer. Gladstone recognizes its unique identity of being a small community in a regional area and places a high value on the processes that help manage growth and enhance its community's attributes. Increasing utility rates is never a reason why elected officials run for office. However, in Gladstone, we have made great strides in fixing our infrastructure, and tonight is the last big heavy lift on getting our rates sustainable and on a path to fixing our infrastructure. And so with that, I'd like to hand it over to our Public Works Director, Jim Wynot, to discuss a little bit of how we got here and what we're asking you to approve tonight.
Thank you, Jackie. Appreciate that. And good evening, council. Can everybody hear me okay? I'm trying out some headsets here, so okay, thank you. So what we have tonight is, as Jackie mentioned, is a resolution adopting a revised master fee schedule, and it is the last of our rate increases that we have been phasing in. Kind of how we got here, the history. The city's gone 30 plus years with little to no increases or investments in its infrastructure. In 2014, the city started updating its master plans, and that's the water, sewer, storm, transportation, and its park master plans. Out of that, then the city looked at the master plans, gave direction for doing a rate study. So then they did a rate study for all of those utilities. And then with that, we also did an FDC study, which happened a couple of years ago, that those rates were increased as well for development. So development pays its way. In 2016, the city started doing public outreach, which included open houses, a town hall, several work sessions, lots of council meetings, mailers to the citizens, bill stuffers, and community surveys, newsletter articles, social media, and all kinds of stuff like that. In 2017, the city started phasing in its increases. You can see that in the staff report. It's listed. All the increases since 2017 are listed there. By 2019, the city was generating enough revenue to support its operation and maintenance of its infrastructure. Not to do any of its capital improvements, but now it's in a position in 2019 to take care of its system. And you guys have probably seen that in the monthly reports that we've been doing for several years. Those are the kinds of things that we were doing in the infrastructure for the city, for the city's infrastructure, excuse me. In 2019, late 2019, the city held another open house and had a survey to engage the community and get feedback on how much the community wanted to invest in its infrastructure. And this was solely in the capital side of the infrastructure. How much infrastructure do we replace a year? There were 3 options presented. There was a minimum investment option that would only address the mutual agreement order we have with the Department of Environmental Quality. And in a nutshell, what that is the city's been overflowing raw sewage to the Clackamas River for many years and recently entered into an agreement to get that problem fixed. So the minimum would take care of that. The second option was to do the rate increase based on what the master plans and rate studies recommended. And that would be replacing the city's infrastructure in 20 to a 30-year time frame. The third option was something in the middle, and that was setting the city up a phased-in process, a phased-in rate increase, which we were talking about tonight, that would allow the city to replace its infrastructure once every 100 years. The survey showed that 60% of the community wanted more than the minimum. So with that, the city council gave staff direction to do a 2-year phased-in approach on the middle option, option B, and you can see that in the staff report. This would put the city in a position, as I mentioned, to replace its infrastructure every 100 years. January of 2020, a $17 a month increase was put on the bill, which was approximately 25%, went into effect. Excuse me, my mouth's getting a little dry. And that was phase 1. That was accomplished this last January. The second phase and the final phase of that is what we're talking about tonight. Also in July of 2020, the city adopted its low-income utility assistance program for citizens struggling financially. It's not that we didn't have one, but we improved the one that we had to make it more available to more people in the community. Currently, there are 112 accounts that are taking advantage of this program at the city. In September of 2020, there's also a COVID relief became available through the state. So we have that link on our website, and we encourage people to, if they are struggling, to go there and apply for that assistance. Included in the packet is a utility rate comparison. If the rates are adopted tonight, this is what the rates would look like. And as you can see, we are still at the bottom of the scale. Not last anymore, but at the bottom of the scale. Also included in this master fee schedule is a 3% increase to our right-of-way usage fee. That is something that in the original resolution was adopted, that we raise that 3% annually. So we are doing that at this point, as we have in years past. Public outreach, if this rate increase is approved tonight, the public outreach will continue similar to it did last year in newsletter articles, bill stuffers, websites, social media, and such. And we will also be promoting the low income utility assistance program and the state's COVID relief program as well in that public outreach. So with that, are there any questions that I can answer?
Let me go through counselors. I have one question. With all of this outreach, are we using that same firm that we were using before? Or are we just doing it ourselves?
So we used them before, and we're going to use them a little bit, but mainly we have all the information. It's really just saying the same thing. So we won't be using them much.
Okay, they did a great job. So it was
Yes.
nice to have them on board.
And we still have all that information, and it really, you know, being this is the second phase, we have all the outreach ready to go.
Okay. Counselor Neese, do you have any questions or concerns?
No, I'm comfortable with everything we've been doing. It's working.
Okay, great. Counselor Reisner?
No, it looks good. Thank you, Director Wynot.
Counselor Mercero?
Thank you. It looks good.
All right. Counselor Ripley?
I think it looks good. The one question I do have is, I have people asking me quite often, when are they going to start seeing another project getting underway? And do we have any of that scheduled, or are we still doing the little cleanup stuff, fixing all the problems that they created?
Both. We do have some big projects scheduled. We actually have some in design, and we're going to be breaking ground this next summer. One big one I can mention to you guys, we are looking at doing a sewer replacement down on West Clackamas Boulevard. That was one of our big problem areas where the line is actually not at grade. It's got a big hump in it, and it's causing us issues. So there's about 2 blocks of water and sewer that'll get replaced. We have a couple storm projects that are in design right now, anticipating moving forward this next summer. And then once this rate increase and we start actually generating some good revenue, you'll see more in the years to come.
Okay. And will there be like on the city's website, maybe a list or an order of future projects so people could see it and stop always wondering what's going on?
We can do that, absolutely. We try to keep up to date on the projects that are actually out on the ground or, you know, going out to bid on there. One of the other ones comes to mind that actually is on there. We didn't get to this last year because of COVID kind of been putting a little bit of cramp in our style, is the one-way project down there on East Clackamas. So we got some striping and some work to do down there. But without doing slurry seal last year, that kind of threw the kink in that. But yes, we can add to that list, absolutely.
All right. I think that's all I have. They did clean my sewer lines out today. They're parked out in front of my house for an hour, then they moved down a block. So it's good seeing those guys out there doing that prevention stuff. So that's all I got.
Thank
Great,
you.
Thank you. Counselor Tracy?
Thank you, Mayor. I have a couple of questions. So either Director Wynot or City Administrator Betts, 112 accounts on the assistance program. I'm assuming we have budget to onboard more. And are we doing some more outreach to kind of get to these folks who need this help? That's my first question. My other question is, that particular fund, is that fund cross-subsidized by the other ratepayers, or is this money that's coming from another allocation?
Your heart monitor just like went off for a minute.
Oh, who's that? So I don't believe there's an actual fund, an account sitting there to help pay for these. What it does is it just lowers the revenue in those utilities. So if it's for the water and sewer and storm, which typically those are the ones, then there would just be less revenue coming into those. So in a sense, yes, the rest of the citizens would be subsidizing that if you're still looking at the total end game, you know, total revenue. Yes.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I guess, and then going back to the question about onboarding more folks who may need some help, if that's something we can discuss at a future date on this topic, I think it's a good idea for us to do that and maybe reach out to our community again and see if we can help them along.
Yes, one of the things we plan on doing in our outreach going into the beginning of the year, and this takes effect, is definitely emphasizing both programs, the one that the city offers and the one that the state offers, because there are people that are being affected by COVID and they can apply for both actually. So we will definitely be pushing those messages out.
Thank you, Director White. And the final question I have is, is the Public Works Department responsible for the fire hydrants then, for them functioning and, you know, functioning at the level that they should be functioning, et cetera, et cetera? Is that part of this infrastructure we're talking about as well?
Yes, absolutely. Actually, the Public Works and the fire department work together on that. So they do some flowing and we do the maintenance on them. So they do get checked and make sure they work, and we work on them quite regularly, taking them apart, raising them up so they work, and replacing the guts in them so that they're, you know, sometimes they get froze up. So yes, this is part of the infrastructure. And you've probably seen, we probably replaced about 7 or 8 hydrants this year so far that were not operating correctly.
I asked the question because a certain prominent individual's house caught fire this year, and I was on the scene, and I was surprised about how much water was coming out of the hydrant that wasn't going in the hose. So I guess what I want to emphasize is that this also includes that safety infrastructure as part of our public works infrastructure package that has not been taken care of to this, to the point of before your arrival, Jim. I just don't think, quite frankly, that some of it has been taken care of at the levels it should be, or maintained at the levels it should be.
Right. Yes, and we do that, take care of them. So to date, we do not know of any that are out of service, but we know there's some that need some work.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Great, thank you. Counselor Todd?
Counselor Ripley looked like he still had another question. I don't know if you wanted to move on to me yet.
Yeah, go ahead and then I'll loop back.
Okay, sounds good. I'm not sure who this question goes to, but out of like the 112 accounts that are getting reduced fees for that, and there's a state and city threshold, is the threshold for the income the same for both of those? Does anybody know if it's, I know that we've tweaked ours a little bit recently after reviewing it, so I just didn't know sort of where that, I mean, what's low income as far as, is it a certain percentage of the median or what, and if it's the same for our city as it is the state levels?
Yeah, so the city adopted the more of an industry standard, federal guidelines on that, where before they weren't so much, the way I understand it. And then as far as the state, that's a COVID related thing. And I do not know, and I don't know if Kathy's on tonight to speak to that, but I do not know how they run that program.
What the threshold is, you don't know?
Yeah, exactly. Because it's a COVID one. It's related to COVID more so than ours. Ours is for income, and which COVID could have affected. So it's kind of both.
Right.
Yeah.
And I just have one other question, and then and Director White, I know you can answer this. And this is just more for informational since we've talked about it so much. Can you remind me how many miles of pipe in the city we're talking about taking care of, and what the average age of that pipe is right now, and why it's so important that we're improving it?
Yes, absolutely. So we have in our water, sewer, and storm, they all have a little different number of miles, but there's typically around 44 miles, give or take, on each one of them. And so 44 miles, just some stats out there, you know, we have 1,000 catch basins in town and manholes and all of that. So we have 19 miles of asbestos cement pipe in town. That is a very fragile pipe, and we have a lot of issues with that pipe. So almost half of our pipe is asbestos cement pipe and undersized and at the end of its useful life. Age-wise, we have pipes out there back in the 40s, 50s, and maybe even occasionally some that we don't even know how old it is, so probably older.
What's the average lifespan for something like that? Suggested lifespan.
Yeah, exactly. So, some of the older pipe, they estimate it somewhere between 40 and 60 years. Today's standards and with the new construction standards we adopted, we're expecting 75 to 100 years.
Thank you.
Councilor Ripley?
So your time frame there doesn't cover how long it's going to take us to replace those pipes.
100 years with this rate increase, we're estimating, and that's if we keep up with inflation.
So some of these pipes are going to be 100 years out of date by the time we get to them.
Yes.
That wasn't the question. I have like a little side branch on your questions. You made a comment about changing some fire hydrants. So just for everybody's thought process, if you have to change one fire hydrant, you got to buy a hydrant, your manpower, your time. What's that nutshell going to cost to replace one fire hydrant?
I would say a typical fire hydrant replacement from start to finish is going to run you, like if we were to go out to bid, it's probably $5,000 to $6,000 a pop with labor, materials. I mean, the cost of the hydrant pushing $2,000, $2,200, depending on the depth of bury. So, and then you look at all the
equipment. We just don't go out and replace hydrants. They're expensive.
Yes, and we try to rebuild them if we can. There are some hydrants out there that they don't make parts for anymore. They are, and you may be familiar with your experiences, those scissor hydrants. We cannot repair those. We have to replace them. Or if they're at a wrong bury or something, but we can stock those and use them in another place. So we try to not just put new ones in if they can be rebuilt.
All right, is that good? Anybody else? Because this is a utility rate increase, we need to treat it a little bit differently where we need to allow public comment. So if you would like to comment on this, could you please chime in or let Tammy Bannock know? I'll leave it open for just a bit. See if we have anybody that's interested.
Mayor, I do not see any hands up at the moment, and I do not see anybody on the video if they want to raise their hand.
All right. All right. Well, then would someone like to make a motion on item number 11, resolution 1186?
This is Councilor Mercero. I'd like to make a motion. I make a motion to approve resolution number 1186, a resolution repealing resolution number 1182 and adopting a revised master fee schedule effective January 1st, 2021.
Do I have a second?
Councilor Ripley will second that.
All right, motion was made by Councilor Mercero and seconded by Councilor Ripley. Do we have any further discussion or questions, concerns? I don't see anything. So Tammy, could you do a roll call vote, please?
Councilor Tracy,
Aye.
Councilor Reisner,
Yes.
Councilor Todd,
Yes.
Councilor Mercero,
Aye.
Councilor Ripley,
Yes.
Councilor Neese,
Aye.
Mayor Stemple.
Yes. Thank you, everyone. Raising rates is never a fun thing, but I think you all have seen proof that this is warranted in a big way. All right, next is item number 12, resolution 1187, adopting the Gladstone Nature Park Master Plan. Staff?
Thank you, Mayor. This one, I'm also going to ask Public Works Director Wynot to give you an overview of the project.
Thank you, Jackie. We have before you is a resolution to adopt the parks nature park site plan, or master plan as it's called. And we can talk about that a little bit later, whether we call it a master plan or site plan. There was some confusion on that. One of the priorities of the Parks Board going into 2021 year was completing a site plan for the nature park. The City Council agreed and gave staff direction to move forward with the plan. The city entered into a contract with Conservation Technics in July, and the project started with a kickoff meeting and data collection. In August and September, there was a site analysis and design options took place. An open house and online engagement also took place in September and October. And that was followed up by a joint Parks Board and City Council meeting in November to have a discussion, input, and preferred design. This input was incorporated into the plan that you have in front of you. And we're excited to have this plan. This is going to give the community and staff all some direction on doing things up there, and know that we're not going to have to tear it out later, which I know has been a concern and some issue in some respects. With that, it's kind of just a quick overview. If anybody has any questions, I would like to also recognize Steve Dew and Jean that is online tonight. If there's any technical questions that I'm not able to answer, we have all of us here to answer any questions that council might have.
Could you go ahead and bring up the change in the naming of the plan so we can get that into the discussion?
Yes, absolutely. So the citywide parks master plan identified or recommended a site plan for the nature park, and it also mentioned the site plan for others. So it's really a matter of a master plan and a site plan are really the same thing. It's really, what do we want to call it? I understand the clarity of calling it a site plan so it doesn't get confused with the overall city parks master plan. So I guess that's a question for the city council. If we want to, we can do that fairly easy. Just call it a site plan, a nature park site plan versus a master plan. So and Mindy Garlington, the vice chair on the Parks Board Committee, brought that up, and you should see the letter in the packet on that.
All right, thank you for that. Yeah, it was confusing seeing it called a master plan when, you know, we have the umbrella master plan, and that's really not what this is. So I'll go counselor by counselor. Counselor Neese, any questions or concerns?
I mean, it's been referred to as the master plan for quite some time. And to me, it's describing the plan for the park, sewer, and water. And the site plan falls under that. And so I personally don't think we need to change it. We need to leave it as is.
Okay. Counselor Reisner?
No, I think it's one particular park plan for the nature park versus the master plan for all the parks. I like the use of the site plan over master myself. But other than that, it looks good.
All right, thank you. Counselor Mercero?
I agree with Councilor Neese. I believe the master plan is the right way to go.
All right, Counselor Ripley?
I think site plan sounds better. To me, the master plan sounds like you already have it budgeted and that's what we're going to do. Site plan, it makes it sound like you're planning something for the future. And if we go out and put something that we tell people we're going to spend $1 million for this park and we're going to raise your water rates, people are going to connect the two together, whether they're related or not. So I think having a name that kind of brings it separate from the city budget on there, I think, is more important with us doing the utility increases right now.
All right, thank you. Counselor Tracy?
Well, to me, the master plan is a more encompassing long-term horizon plan. I have another question about the plan or about what's been presented regarding the adjacent private property. So maybe you can circle through everybody. To me, site plan works, but master plan is a longer time horizon planning document.
Okay, Counselor Todd.
I was actually confused what where the confusion was. Was it causing a problem with the parks board? Were they, I mean, was it really confusing? Maybe Mindy could answer that. And what was that sort of confusion? Were people doubling back and not sure what was being discussed, or?
Well, I think some people were referring to a master plan
Mhm.
and some as a site plan, and not really knowing what the difference was and which one of our documents was what, because they're both called master plans.
Okay.
So yeah, we have a parks master plan called the master plan.
Mhm.
And this one's also called a master plan, even though it's not the same document. So they wanted something that differentiated the two.
Does Meldrum have, what are they calling, is it being called a site plan or a master plan for
We don't
that?
have a site plan for that yet. We just
But-
have the parks master plan and then this site plan. So I'm guessing that what we decide for this one will then carry forward when we finally do address Meldrum Bar, whether it be a master plan or a site plan.
Okay, City Administrator Betts, can you let me know, is there going to be, would it be difficult to change that? Would it be time consuming as a, housekeeping type thing, or?
No, all we need to do is make sure if we change the resolution that we change all the correlating documents throughout so that it is only called one official plan.
Okay, well, if there's a consensus to change it, I'm fine with that. I not really, whatever.
Okay, well, then I guess that when we do a vote, we need to first vote what we want to call the thing. And then if we want to adopt it or not. But so before we do that, we can circle back to Counselor Tracy because he had another question.
Thank you, Mayor. So the adjacent residential property, what the word verbiage here is the neighboring property along Webster Road just south of the main park entrance has been targeted for acquisition in the adopted citywide parks master plan. I guess off that first sentence, has the city actively engaged with that property owner on this particular piece of property?
No, we have not.
Okay. So does that still stand in the parks master plan? I mean, would that still be part of this site plan or master plan or what have you for the Gladstone Nature Park?
Yes, yes. And it would be the appropriate time to engage is when there's actually, you're closer and you have the funds to do it. And Gene and Steve can speak on this a little bit. They talked about it at our retreat, or not retreat, our joint meeting, that you do it too far in advance and you really don't have the funds to do anything with it yet. So we really debated on having a conversation with them and decided it's really best to wait.
Yeah, so I hesitate to, if we haven't started a conversation, and it's very presumptuous of us to think to ourselves that we're going to buy a piece of property that may not be on the market or may not be for sale at any time. And I'm just kind of concerned that this language is being inserted again into a site plan for this particular property, but nobody has approached the property owner, the adjacent property owner. And if I own the property and I read this, I would be probably concerned about what the city's intent is. So I do have some issues with that. It's in the master plan, but it's now being reintroduced in the site plan. Am I correct on that, or am I wrong there?
No, you are correct. So this was originally adopted in the master plan,
Right.
For the whole city, and other properties around, other park properties also have similar, considered purchasing adjacent property,
Right, but
or
I've
any
always
property.
Yeah, I agree with you, Director Wynot, but I've always seen the language kind of different than this. It was not as actionable as this particular language in the master plan. I didn't catch it. It's a little bit bothersome because I think it does two things. One is it certainly drives that market value up for the property owner if they know that the city wants to acquire the property. But then it also puts us in that that tenuous position of what if that drives that market rate up for that particular property? Then what does the city do if the city really does need that property? So I'm just concerned about how the wording is in this particular site plan. It's not a deal breaker for me, but I just think that this is kind of something that's standing out there as the folks that own that property, if they haven't been talked to at all about this process, it's probably going to be news to them. I would agree. I would assume. So.
Oh. Madam Mayor, may
Yes. Councilor Reisner.
maybe give some history in that in the past, a few years back, the previous owner was approached about purchasing that property. So there has been conversation between owners of that property in the past and the city, just to let you know. So I would assume that the current owner probably was aware of that in the purchase of it, from my understanding.
All right. Any other comments? Councilor Todd?
Councilor Reisner, like when you say the history of that, can you give me sort of an idea of how long ago the city approached the previous owners?
Within the last probably 4 or maybe 5 years since I've been on city council.
And we know that the owners have changed at this point. Do we know that?
I'm pretty sure they have.
I thought it was still in with the same family. Am I wrong on that? Because Les Poole has talked about this before. And I don't think recently there's been a conversation with the family.
No. Records would have to be checked, I guess, at the county, but my understanding is that the current owners purchased it not too long ago, but I could be wrong. Or as maybe what you're talking about, it went from one family member to another. That could be possible. So, but I'm not absolutely sure. It's been a few years.
Any other questions? Staff, any other comments? Nope. No. So I think the first thing that we need to determine is what we want to call the thing, whether it be a master plan or be a site plan. And I'd like to do a vote on that one so that it's clear. Would someone make a motion to name it the site plan?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I'd like to move that the wording in the resolution and accompanying paperwork be site plan versus master plan.
All right, do I have a second?
I'll second it just so we can sort of see what the consensus is. So, yeah.
Great, thank you. Thank you. Motion was made by Councilor Reisner and seconded by Councilor Todd to change the name of this document from the Gladstone Nature Park Master Plan to the Gladstone Nature Park Site Plan for clarification. Any further discussion on this one?
I think I'm getting more questions now listening to everybody talk. If we have a master plan, if that's going to be the master plan also, would you want to call it the Nature Park Master Plan, something to differentiate it from the other master plans? I think either way for me, I think it's a clerical thing on what words we need to use and what words we should be using. If we could have two separate master plans or plans inside of a plan, they need to be called something specific. I think the whole point of this is to clean up the words to make sure we're putting things down correctly.
Yeah.
I don't know if we need an English major or what, but I'm good with whatever you got.
Master plan of a master plan.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Master plan of a master plan.
Madam Mayor, if I may.
Yes.
My thought in that, as alluded to, like I said, this is the first big park that's being planned out, and we've got another one that's even bigger, Meldrum Bar, and that's on the down the road on the horizon. With especially with the fee that's being going to be implemented next year, is why I think using site plan would be less confusing for not only staff, but also users and planners and the public to call it a site plan, so that, you know, you've got the master plan for all the parks, and then each park would be have its site plan. Or I'm not saying every park would have a site plan, but I got a sneaky feeling like you, as mentioned, not only do we have the Meldrum Bar, but also the Max Patterson Park. Do you want to call a master plan for each one of them? I think that would, as you add more plans, it would get more daunting and confusing. And it's just a word. There's, you know, it doesn't really change anything, just lowers the confusion. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Tammy, could you do a roll call vote, please?
Counselor Todd,
I'm trying to figure out what I'm supposed to say. I will, yes, change to site plan.
Counselor Mercero,
As long as it's connected with a particular park, I don't have a problem with the site plan. But each one should be done fairly consistently, that we're updating or improving.
Counselor Ripley,
Yes.
Counselor Neese,
No, I'm having a problem with this because it's terminology, and I agree with some of the statements that Councilor Tracy said. I just think we need better clarification, and we need to be cautious here because of the people that owned part of that there. And I just think until we get to the bottom of the nature park and what is and what isn't, and I've just got a major concern about this.
We're
So I
just
think
voting on,
that
we're just doing the name
master,
change
I'm
now.
just making a statement, but master
Okay.
plan, yes, I will stick with that, but not site plan.
Okay, thank you.
Counselor Tracy,
Well, I guess we have a master plan and we have individual site plans for each park. I think if it was Councilor Mercero that said so, I agree with having consistency across the board. But it might behoove us to go back and revisit the master plan to see two things. One is whether or not we really allowed ourselves to be able to build site plans for each specific park, or each specific park actually falls under the master plan. And so I just want to make sure that language is there. I'm fine with site plan, but we need to make sure there's some consistency across the master plan, recognizing each park having a site plan.
Great, thank you.
Counselor Reisner,
Yes, thank you.
Mayor Stemple,
Yes, so it is now called the Gladstone Nature Park Site Plan. Thank you. So next, we're going to continue discussion on the site plan. Do any counselors have any additional comments or concerns?
I do, Mayor.
Yes.
Water storage tank. So this is a big issue, I believe, for this particular park. Do we have, other than what's here in this plan, do we have some other aspirations about the water storage tank that's supposed to be sited up on the nature park? Staff.
I'm not following your
aspiration.
question.
So my question is are there going to be any revisions to that master plan that places that tank up on top of the park? Is that intended?
There can be, yes. The way it's worded in this plan gives it, unless there's another site found. And so at some point when we do have the funding for a reservoir, we would look into that. What available property, what elevation, so that kind of narrows down where the reservoir can go, and then see if there's any available property at that time.
So my question then would be, we're going to incur costs, engineering costs and design costs for a new site, are we not?
Correct.
And that
Probably the best time to do that would be when you're actually getting ready to design the actual reservoir.
Okay.
Because then it would be on a small, it'd be part of the bigger project.
Okay, well, I just think it's important for the citizens to know that you did go through D&E, if I'm not mistaken, for that particular site.
Yes.
But those monies would be once again expended for another site. And
Correct.
I'm asking the question, Director, why not? Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
Okay. What, just ballpark, what would those numbers look like?
In today's dollars, typically for, well, shoot, that's a real wild guess.
Okay.
It probably costs $150,000. There's a lot that goes into the hydraulics, elevation, the pumping capacity we have. Would we have to increase that? If it's moved across town, you can draw an elevation line through town, and along that elevation line is your available property. So that piece is not too difficult. You can go outside of that a little bit because you can put it on a tower, raise it up. You can dig it way deep in the ground, so you have a little bit of wiggle room there. But as you guys all know, there's not a lot of open and vacant land in town. So then, there would be there'd be a lot of studying in that.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I just think it's fair for the citizens to understand that cost could be incurred a second time for a relocation of that water reservoir.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
So we've already done the design and engineering for this location.
They did enough engineering to know that site will work.
So it was fairly minimal.
Minimal, but it is so close to the current reservoir that, there's some cost, there's some things they didn't have to look at for that. So, the farther away you get from the pump stations and all the hydraulics come into play. So yes, it can be a lot more expensive the farther away you get from our pump station that's located just up the road.
Sure. Yeah, sure. Okay. Anything else, Counselor Tracy?
I think the number would be good. So we probably ought to figure out what we spend on it so that we can talk about the fact that we're going to spend more money if we want to move the tank, and why we would want to move the tank and expend those funds. I think it's just a fair question for any citizen that would want to know what we're doing with that particular site. And I understand that it probably was a timing issue with regard to siting the reservoir up there and then having the nature park be what it is now. And it's gorgeous. I agree. I just want to make sure we're being very clear to our citizens about our expenditures on that one. Thank you.
All right. Any, Counselor Neese, any questions or concerns?
No, I'm okay.
All right. Counselor Reisner.
No, but a curiosity question, and not in regards to kind of follow up on Councilor Tracy's, is the future water tank is in the master water plan. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Counselor Mercero.
I'm not sure what I'm to be addressing.
The site plan document as a whole, the adoption of the document.
I agree with the adoption.
Okay. Counselor Ripley.
I don't have any questions.
Thank you. Counselor Tracy, we already talked. Counselor Todd.
I know I always get confused when you say Counselor Tracy. I'm always like me. No, I don't have any other questions. Counselor Reisner asked mine, so thank you.
All right, great, thank you. So would someone like to make a motion, please?
Sure. I make a motion, this is Councilor Reisner, to approve resolution number 1187, adopting the nature park site plan as amended for, the wording.
All right, would someone like to second that, please?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Motion was made by Counselor Reisner and seconded by Counselor Neese. Do we have any other discussion? I don't hear anybody. Tammy, could you do a roll call vote, please?
Counselor Todd,
Yes.
Counselor Mercero,
Yes.
Counselor Ripley,
Yes.
Counselor Neese,
Yes.
Counselor Tracy,
No?
Counselor Reisner,
Yes.
Mayor Stemple.
Yes, Resolution 1187 has passed. Next item is number 13, a public hearing for ordinance 1507, amending chapter 1.12 of the Gladstone City Charter and Municipal Code to add language regarding custody and use of the city seal and city insignia. Because this is an ordinance, we are going to do a first and second reading depending on how the vote goes. So staff.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This is an exciting one. Gladstone made a lot of progress this past year on completing a tourism strategy and a new brand, something that we haven't done in many years. So in the summer of 2020, in partnership with Rotator, we completed the Gladstone tourism strategy and brand. As part of that refined brand identity, the city has a new logo, which is identified in your packet. When you look in the city ordinance, specifically chapter 1.12, back in 1911, we adopted ordinance number 24 and inserted the city seal. So the city seal is already in chapter 1.12. What we're asking tonight is to also now include our new logo, and then we'd also like to put some definitions, the designation of a city logo, the use of the city seal logo and insignia, and the prohibited uses of the city seal, city logo, and insignia, and the penalties for such. When we were researching different language, we found that it's pretty customary for cities to have that in their chapter. So tonight we're asking you to amend the ordinance. This was also recommended by Rotator that we put some language about the use of the city logo and that it should be designated for official city business. So with that, I will answer any questions that you may have.
All right, I'll go counselor by counselor. Counselor Neese, any questions or concerns?
No, I'm okay with it.
Counselor Reisner?
No, looks good. Thank you.
Counselor Mercero?
No questions.
Counselor Ripley?
No questions.
Counselor Tracy?
Thank you, Mayor. I do have a question. So City Administrator Betts and maybe Chad, I'm assuming that this isn't incorporating the powwow tree as a standalone. I think we're talking just specifically about city insignias and seals, correctly? Am I correct with that?
The city seal with the powwow logo on it, is that what you're referring to?
No, my question is that the powwow tree stands alone. We're not claiming that it's part of our, we're not claiming trademark ownership over the powwow tree. Am I correct?
No, we're claiming trademark over the Gladstone, Oregon logo that is now identified in your packet. The city seal has been there since 1911, but that's all we're adding.
But the powwow tree as a standalone could be used in facsimile by anyone who felt like they wanted to do so. Is that correct?
That is my understanding, yes.
All right, no further questions. Thank you.
Counselor Todd?
No, I just know that when we were in our tourism committee, it did come up about, here we have this new logo, this new design, moving forward, sort of tidying up stuff. And so this was a discussion quite a while ago. And so I have no problem with that. The city spent money on that from a company to create it for us. And so it is the city's. And so I'm fine with that.
All right, thank you. It looks like we have two people that would like to speak on this item. Tammy, could you call them forward, please?
The first is Anessa Hartman.
Hello, everybody. I think one of my questions actually got answered by Counselor Tracy, but I just wanted to offer a suggestion as someone that has worked in branding before, and that I would encourage you guys to have a more detailed paragraph in the new ordinance, really describing the image that lists out the shape, the size, the description of the landscape, the year, with all of the verbiage that surrounds it. Then there's no ifs, ands, or buts if anyone wants to use it as an entirety. But just clarifying that we're not talking about trademarking the individual items of the seal or the logo. You can avoid that by adding those paragraphs to the ordinance. And then the other question was just clarifying what you have listed in section 1.12.050. You have it listed for the city seal and the city logo that no one is allowed to use any cut of. And so I just want clarification on what that means. It was in regards to the powwow tree, as if, you know, someone wants to utilize it in, let's say, their campaign materials. We're not going to fine them $750. So if there can be clarification on that, that would be fantastic. Thank you.
All right, this next person, and then if staff would like to answer that question, that would be fine. But let's call up Kelly Cheney next, please.
Hi, thank you for the opportunity to speak on this matter. First, I'm grateful for the new branding, and I appreciate Tracy Todd's efforts on that so that we could move away from the use of the powwow tree a little bit more. I know this was worked on before some eye-opening things about our anti-racism position and our issues in Gladstone. So maybe this would be a good opportunity to make sure that we're doing things right. So as it was mentioned, this was developed in 1911, I think Jackie just said. So we're using these images from 1911 that are probably of a concern. And so maybe this is a missed opportunity where we should have gone back and made sure we're not trying to make any sort of claim on the powwow tree. So was this ordinance run by a diversity committee or a diversity expert within the context of the history of the powwow tree? Or do we just had a proclamation saying we would look at things through that lens, and it doesn't seem like this did. Yes, it's about the new logo, and I appreciate that, and I do want that protected, and that's great and fine. But if we're rewriting an ordinance that includes something concerning, why not do it right? Why not have somebody look at it? I mean, look at the discussion we just had about the use of site plan. That friggin' went on for 30 minutes, but like these issues about race are just glossed over. And it's because we don't have practice. Everybody knows about water and sewer when they work in the city, but these things are new. And so we really need to take the time to look at these a second time. We need to slow down. There's no rush on this stuff, and make sure that we're not intentionally or inadvertently doing anything that can be perceived as racist or as a problem. And it's not easy, but we can have consistency and we can stick with it. And I don't know if it stops the vote tonight to look at that, or if maybe we just go a second time and look at what we're really saying the city seal is at this point. And do you want as a council to reaffirm that tonight without really knowing what it is and what it represents? Thank you.
All right, thank you. Staff, do you have anything to add to that?
I'm going to ask City Attorney Chad to jump into a little bit about the language that was created around the new logo.
Sure, absolutely, Jackie. For the record, Chad Jacobs from the City Attorney's Office. So the language that was discussed in 1.2.050 dealing with the cut, I think, was the specific language. And so that language needs to be read in conjunction with the rest of that section. And really what that section is trying to get at is if someone's cutting out from an existing paper or something to that nature of the city seal or the city logo, or they're making a facsimile of it or a reproduction of it, that's what it's covering. It's not covering any individual parts. It doesn't govern derivatives of the seal or the logo. So to the extent that someone is doing something along those lines, that doesn't apply. What it's really applying to are the two pictures you see in the ordinance itself. And that's in section, 1.12.010 and 1.12030. Those are the pictures that are governed. And if someone is using those pictures in their entirety, that's what's governed. The other thing I want to clarify is that this is in addition to, this is not trying to trademark these particular logos. That is a separate process. This is a separate protection for the city providing for itself. The city can trademark these either at the federal or state level, or they have a common law trademark right. So this has nothing to do with and doesn't impact or influence trademark rights. It only has to do with providing a separate protection because frankly, it's a little easier to enforce the local ordinance than trying to enforce trademark rights. So that's why cities do this.
All right, thank you, Chad. Anything else, Jackie?
No, that's all I have. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other questions or concerns from council? I'll go through you guys again. Counselor Neese. Did she disappear? Where's Counselor Neese?
Right here. No.
There you are. Nothing. Okay, Counselor Reisner.
No, it looks good. Thank you.
Counselor Mercero.
No questions.
Counselor Ripley.
I don't have any questions.
Counselor Tracy.
No questions. Thank you, Mayor.
Counselor Todd.
Yeah, I was wondering, since we have switched to the new logo, it's on our city trucks, it's on the letterhead, it's on the city website, it's being used in all of those ways. What are some situations where the seal would be used? I mean, I don't even, where would the seal be used? Because I don't even see it on anything anymore.
So the seal could be used on anything to authenticate an official document that the city's conducting business. It could be a commendation, a certificate, a proclamation. An organization or a business may need a ordinance that has the city seal on it. And it's a very distinct imprint on the document that nobody can replicate. So that's an example of when the seal would be used. It's not used very often in Gladstone. Ironically, the DMV requires it. If a car dealership wants to sell cars, they require that we place a copy of the city seal on a document. But it's the logo really that we wanted to make sure that we were capturing and putting in to our new city code.
So that's the reason why it would be very important that no portion of the seal is cut or whatever, because then it could look like an official document that was sent off. You know, I mean, I'm looking at it, I mean, I'm assuming it's the powwow tree, but quite honestly, when you look at it, it's a tree that looks like it's by the ocean to me. So I'm not really sure what it is. So I was wondering, because I know that it used to be like, I think on the police cars maybe, or something along that lines, but I hadn't seen it in a long time. So that's all.
Okay, thank you. So since this is a public hearing, we're going to have a first and second reading. So Tammy, I'll leave it open for a little bit to see if there's anybody else that would like to comment on this one. So if you'd like to comment, please raise your hand or let Tammy Bannock know now.
I do not see any hands raised.
All right, great. Well, then I would entertain a motion for the first reading to approve ordinance 1507.
So moved, Mayor.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Motion was made by Counselor Tracy and seconded by Counselor Todd. Do we have any further discussion? I don't hear anything. Tammy, could you do a roll call vote, please?
Counselor Reisner,
Yes.
Counselor Todd,
Yes.
Counselor Mercero,
Yes.
Counselor Ripley,
Yes.
Counselor Neese,
Yes.
Counselor Tracy,
Aye.
Mayor Stemple.
Yes, so it was unanimous. So now we can go ahead and do the second reading. I would entertain a motion to approve the second reading of ordinance 1507.
Once again, so moved, Mayor.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll
I'll
second.
second.
No, go ahead.
We have a tie. All right, motion was made by Counselor Tracy and seconded in unison by Counselor Reisner and Counselor Neese. Do we have any further discussion? I don't hear anything. Tammy, could you do a roll call vote, please?
Counselor Reisner,
Yes.
Counselor Todd,
Yes.
Counselor Mercero,
Aye.
Counselor Ripley,
Yes.
Counselor Neese,
Yes.
Counselor Tracy,
Aye.
Mayor Stemple.
Yes, passed unanimously. Thank you, everybody. Next item is number 14, Resolution 1188, condemning mistreatment and bullying directed at all people withstanding of their color, sex, national origin, sexual orientation, or age, and affirming the City of Gladstone's commitment to equity. Councilor Reisner asked that this be put on the agenda, so I'm going to turn it over to him.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So, bullying has been a major problem in our schools in particular, but also in our society for years. And it's a continuation of kind of what was discussed last month. And it's something that was brought up just a few years ago at this in the city council level, and it was decided not to take any action at that time. And being that I was under the belief that we weren't doing resolutions because of prior city council decision on that, but the city council changed its mind last month. So I wanted to bring this forward, being that I think that the city needs to take action or start the ball rolling, taking action in addressing this, and hopefully working with other entities, school district, other agencies, along with like the county, other cities, to combat this problem.
All right, thank you. Well, we have quite a few people that want to comment on this, so I think I'll just start with them, and then we'll circle back to council and discuss this further. So we'll go ahead and start the public comment. Tammy, could you call people up individually, please?
Yes, the first is Ben Hildner.
And I want to remind everybody that you have 3 minutes, please.
Good morning, good evening. According to stopbullying.gov, bullying is unwanted, aggressive behavior among school-age children that involves real or perceived power imbalance. Counselor Reisner, you should know this as a school teacher. The behavior is repeated or has the potential to be repeated over time. Both kids who are bullied and who bully others may have serious lasting problems. In order to be considered bullying, the behavior must be aggressive and include an imbalance of power and repetition. I want to focus on the imbalance of power here, and I want to be crystal clear. White, middle class, neurotypical, cis male politicians are not victims of an imbalance of power. Councilor Reisner may have intentions of recognizing the dignity and sanctity of human life, or confronting systemic bullying, institutionalized mistreatment. But this resolution, coming on the heels of Gladstone's recent stand against anti-Black violence, is at best suspect. Outside of its title, the resolution does nothing to mention a single characteristic that would actually make one a target of bullying. People who are noticeably different, race, ability, nationality, are LGBTQ friends and neighbors, or historically mistreated racial groups. His words don't even acknowledge patriarchy or gender as factors. There is a power imbalance, Councilor Reisner. You are not its victim. If you truly want to condemn mistreatment in Gladstone, I suggest you start by acknowledging your own power on this land and in the room in which you now sit. This past month, Tete Kofi, a Black man, was walking across McLaughlin Boulevard at 7:25 p.m. A northbound pickup truck driven by a white man from Milwaukee hit Mr. Kofi's body and in a flash ended his 35-year life. For that death, not even a careless driving citation was issued. If you were the driver, Mr. Reisner, the outcome would be no different. The white first responders would empathize with your perspective in the accident. You sit on an all-white board representing occupied lands of the Chinookan Clackamas tribe. If not for your exception, last month's resolution condemning anti-Black violence would have passed unanimously. Also last month, the citizens of Gladstone overwhelmingly supported the election of Gladstone's first ever Indigenous city councilor. Your resolution does not mention the Clackamas people who were swindled out of the land that we currently occupy. There is white supremacy in Gladstone, Councilor Reisner, and your resolution in this context emboldens that white supremacy. I genuinely don't believe that you intend this consciously, but I find it hard to believe that you've come to this point in your life and you have yet to learn that your intentions matter very little. Instead, I invite you to engage in the more difficult conversation about impact. I invite you to listen to the targets of real bullying before letting your white fragility show anymore.
Mr. Hildner, your time is up. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Next is Angela Riley.
Hi, I feel this resolution is all wrong, and I urge the councilors to vote it down. I don't believe this is a real resolution. It's a reaction. It doesn't say anything of meaning. It's vague and confusing and doesn't define bullying or the behaviors it's denouncing. So it's useless for practical purposes. That it comes from Neil Reisner, directly following his opposition to last month's resolution 1188, condemning violence and racism, gives perspective and a perfect example of white fragility and racism, which would be a violation to that resolution. This town has seen bullying, and recently. If we're going to address it, let's do it right, and let's take the time to get it right. Let's establish what bullying is and what it isn't, and the difference between the vulnerable versus those with power, identifying abuses by those in positions of authority and power. Let's also establish that citizens calling out an elected official for their behaviors is not bullying, and it is appropriate. It could be considered a responsibility. Thank you.
All right, next.
Next is Tracy Hill.
Hi, I apologize. My video is not working. I would like to encourage the council members to vote down Resolution 1188. This resolution is so obviously a racist tit-for-tat reaction to the anti-racist resolution adopted at the City Council meeting in November. I'd like to know which recent incidents have brought about this particular resolution. Also, have there been any listening sessions or council meetings surrounding these supposed bullying incidents? This is not about bullying. This is a veiled attempt at pushing the All Lives Matter agenda. Again, I implore you all to vote this resolution 1188 down. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next.
Next is Kelly Cheney.
Hi, thank you for the opportunity to speak. Normally, I don't read my comments because I want to be more casual about it, but I have a lot to get into here, so forgive me, I will read. The duty of our city council and our city administration is to prioritize the city's limited resources, handle the most urgent matters first. Mayor Semple starts every meeting by saying the council should not use their personal beliefs to guide the business of the city. But that is exactly what's happened here with this proclamation. The proclamation copies 75 to 80% of the anti-racism proclamation word for word, and I believe it's a direct retaliation to that anti-racism proclamation being passed last month. I request the council answer these questions tonight before voting on the issue. Please acknowledge this proclamation was only drafted after the anti-racism proclamation was passed. Please tell us any and all people who reviewed it or had input in the proclamation. What diversity committee pursuant to the anti-racism proclamation just passed, or Indigenous or people of color in our community or experts in this area reviewed this proclamation in context with the previous anti-racism proclamation to make sure the city didn't violate its anti-racism positions? When we have answers, we can confirm that people involved in this proclamation have used taxpayer time and resources for this frivolous proclamation as a retaliation and to present an All Lives Matter position, which is racist. I consulted an African American diversity ethics and professor of cross-cultural communications for an analogy to help people understand. Let's say last summer, Gladstone citizens and the fire department and local representatives got together to talk about a serious problem with house fires in Gladstone, 75% of them belonging to people of color. We needed to do something about this crisis, about people of color losing their houses to fire. So the appropriate response was to institute a proclamation, a law, or something where we could make sure we were protecting these marginalized people's houses so they didn't burn down. The wrong answer, the racist response, would be then to follow up immediately the next month with another order that resources should be used for all houses. Let's hose every house down in Gladstone because every house is important. We are saying that the houses on fire is not a priority. This proclamation is saying we want protection for all the houses, not the ones on fire right now. And the purpose of the proclamation is to water down the anti-racism proclamation with all lives an all lives flavor. I'm confident the majority of the council will not pass it. However, this has caused another layer of trauma for our BIPOC citizens. They were given a glimmer of hope last month, and it was crushed by the presenters of this proclamation tonight. It's a dark spot on Councilman Reisner's legacy. This proclamation further exposes the systemic racism in our city and the ignorance of some of our leaders. That's it. I'm beeped. Somebody beeped me.
Yep, time is up. Thank you, Kelly. Next, please.
Next is Anessa Hartman.
Hello again. I just wanted to start off by saying thank you to everyone that came out to speak today. I know that it's never easy. I am so excited that we as a city are trying to address some really heavy issues that have just been brushed under the rug over the years. And believe me, I am all for combating bullying. Like, yes, let's take a stand and lead by example for once. Here's the thing. This resolution, with all due respect, is so incredibly empty. What research has been done? What community engagement was done? And the biggest question is, who is this targeting? Is this for your own personal vendetta? Is this for our city officials, our city staff? Is this for our youth? If so, has the school district been involved? Have you taken the time to listen to the youth about what the issues are for them? If you want to cross lines with racism, then yes, you should know that bullying is totally around in our school district, like many others. But what this resolution lacks is clarity, and there are absolutely no action items that tell our community how we are going to combat and stand up to end bullying. I did my own research to see what other city governments have done in terms of bullying and found out that back in 2014 at the US Conference of Mayors, 200 cities across America signed the mayor's campaign to end bullying directed at youth. These cities showed the data. They have an entire month dedicated to ending bullying. They have Unity Day. They have coloring pages for businesses to print out. They did the research. They did this not for themselves, but for their community. And they took the time and effort to really make those who have been affected feel like they hear them and they see them. The resolution, when compared side by side to Resolution 1184, is roughly 75% the exact same verbiage, with only the first two paragraphs being the only original verbiage. So I have to question how much genuine thought was put into this new resolution. It is actually offensive to those who have experienced bullying, especially our youth. I understand that there isn't a ton of information for what to do when adults are bullied. For me, I stopped using the word bully after 18, and you become an adult. Now it becomes harassment, intimidation, discrimination. And like you, I am an adult. And when I have experienced bullying, you want to know what I did? Is I got a lawyer and I contacted the police to make them aware of all the accusations. I wholeheartedly believe that we should not pass this right now and instead add this to our agenda to discuss starting with the new year. Then we can take the proper steps and research and come up with a solid plan to execute. Because otherwise, we are passing a resolution that has no merit whatsoever, and it merely is letters on a piece of paper. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Next is Mark Zimpbaum.
Hi, sorry, thank you. I too also see this as kind of a reaction to 1184. I am going to come at it at a bit different angle. I see it as a bit of an all lives matter versus BLM. Black Lives Matter, for those who don't know, and I would just like to express why I support Black Lives Matter. And I support Black Lives Matter because there's only one ethnic group in America that did not choose to come to America originally. I support Black Lives Matter because after the first 150 years in America, this ethnic group did not receive any benefits from any of its labor during that time. I support Black Lives Matter because after this 100 years of his servitude, they were then given a second-class citizenship. Yes, many of us have also experienced, if you're Jewish or Native American, Latino American, or of another period or group, but there is only one group that consistently falls at the bottom of educational testing, of home ownership, of incarceration, and repeatedly in the United States. I support Black Lives Matter because the US Constitution that I teach as a government teacher says that African Americans at one point in this history were 3/4 of a person. I teach Black Lives Matter because at the Oregon Constitution, or let's go back to when it was a territory, threatened African Americans by law as well as lash, that if they came to Oregon, they would receive 39 lashes twice a year until they left. And then we became a state, and then we put in the exclusion clause into our Constitution. I am part of Black Lives Matter because at times in our history, it is necessary to focus on a specific problem to solve that problem. Just as during Breast Cancer Awareness Month, we focus on solving and curing the horrible illness of breast cancer. No one during the Susan B. Komen run is yelling all cancers matter. Yet I feel that this is an all cancers matter issue during a specific time. I thank you all for your time to listen, and I appreciate, and I would encourage that if this is truly an anti-bullying measure, that it go through the process and procedures that the Black African American equity measure went through at the same time. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next.
Next is Donna Diggs.
Hi, good evening. I'm Donna Diggs. I grew up in Gladstone. I moved back to Gladstone 15 years ago so that my daughter could attend school here. My daughter is biracial and has unfortunately experienced racism both in our community and at Gladstone High School by the staff. Thank you for adopting Resolution 1184 last month. That is a critical step in supporting marginalized populations in our community. I've been an educator for 31 years now, promoting lifelong learning, and would like to take this opportunity to ask you some reflective questions. I'll start out with a quote. If we stop using racial categories, then we will not be able to identify racial inequity. If we cannot identify racial inequity, then we will not be able to identify racist policies. If we cannot identify racist policies, then we cannot challenge racist policies. If we cannot challenge racist policies, then racist power's final solution will be achieved, a world of inequity. This quote leads me to Resolution 1188 that is being considered tonight. The timing of this resolution, coming directly on the heels of Resolution 1184 adopted with one counselor voting against it, is not inadvertent. The intention of Resolution 1188 is clearly in opposition of Resolution 1184. That said, I will share another quote. A racist power creates racist policies out of raw self-interest. The racist policies necessitate racist ideas to justify them. This quote, in correlation with the previous quote that I shared, challenges you to reflect on the message that you are sending to our community if you accept this resolution, again, which is in direct opposition to the resolution that you passed last month. As I look at our council, I see an entire council who all have white privilege. I urge you all to do the moral, ethical, and right thing in voting no tonight by not approving Resolution 1188. I further challenge each of you individually and as a council to evaluate where you stand on the cultural proficiency continuum and continue to educate yourselves. We all have room to grow, and when we know better, we do better. Again, please vote no on this resolution before you tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Next is Leslie Myers.
Hi, I'm Leslie Myers, and I want to fully support the speakers that have gone before me. They've been much more eloquent than I tonight. In addition to the inherent racism in this resolution, it's profoundly vague. It vaguely refers to a listening session. Is there an educational plan? What are the consequences to bullying? What's an action plan? It's just not developed, and it certainly looks like a response to the anti-racism resolution that was passed last month. So once again, I encourage you to not support this resolution. Thanks.
Thank you. And one last speaker.
Jerry Blakeney. Jerry Blakeney.
Good evening. Good evening. This is Gary. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Terrific. Well, I want to thank you all for the time that you've already spent. We're an hour and a half into this, and the opposition just keeps on coming. Look, I think at the end of the day, it's probably a good thing that Councillor Neal is leaving. I'm sorry to say, but we won't know whether we would have voted for him or not. We don't know if the people who want racism in our community would have came out and supported him, because he's quitting. And to be honest, I don't think that it's fair to your city, the voters who elected Anessa Hartman in his stead, dare I say overwhelmingly, to put forth this racist resolution. Now, I know that there are maybe one or two councilors who are flirting with the idea of passing this, even though overwhelmingly you have not had one resident come out and say that they support this, other than Neal. So I ask the other four, five, to have some guts, stand up and say this is wrong. I'm not only opposing this and voting it down, but also this bullshit is wrong. It's garbage. Shouldn't be on your ticket, shouldn't be on your ballot to talk about. It's garbage. And whoever let it on here, I'll let that one sit. Do the right thing, vote this down, and come out in your comments and say it was wrong. That way, we can have a real debate about bullying and the items that matter to this community. Bye, Neal.
All right, thank you. All right, so now I'm going to go counselor to counselor for discussion.
Excuse me, Mayor.
Yes, yes.
Is it possible that, and with the council and yourself, that I could read a statement from someone that wasn't able to get it in time due to an emergency?
Well, I think we all saw at the council, and we usually don't read things in, and we have a policy that things have to be received by noon of the day of the meeting in order to have it submitted. So that's kind of been our policy, and I've tried really hard to keep with that so that we don't make a lot of exceptions.
Well, then I will ask that this gets put into the meeting minutes, and it's a statement from Kyle Donovan.
Thank you. All right, Councilor Neese, you're first.
No, I do not support Neal's resolution.
All right, do you have any other comments?
I'm sorry that it's come to this situation, and I would think Neal, of all people, would have thought about this before he wrote his statement and put it in the paper. And with what Anessa had said about the word bullying, no, and I have been on the other end of harassment, intimidation myself. And I think it's time that we let things go and move this city forward as well as this council.
All right, thank you. Councilor Reisner.
Thank you, Mayor. So in response to a couple of the speakers, and I appreciate y'all being here and speaking up, I didn't realize that, and my apologies if I mispronounced Mr. Zimbaum's last name, Mark. I also teach government in high school. And one thing that I make clear, and this is response to Mr. Hildner's comments, that especially when talking about or introducing the Constitution, I make it clear that we the people back 240 years ago was not most of my students, in that most of them are minorities and females, that it was talking about me, a privileged white guy. And actually, most of them are privileged old white guys, which I am a privileged white guy. So I make it clear, and it comes up a couple different times as we're discussing our government and how it operates, and maybe how it should operate and how it shouldn't. So I want you to know that I am cognizant that I've had privileges that maybe Ms. Hartman hasn't, that a lot of my current students haven't had growing up. I just hope that we continue as a country, as a society, community, to get better and go forth. And as to what was kind of just mentioned about from the last speaker, I didn't feel that I needed to rally the troops or getting those that to come out against bullying and to support this resolution. Whereas apparently a lot of you have talked, got organized, and which is okay. I mean, that's government, and you're able to do that, and I'm glad you are. Constitution allows us to redress and talk to our officials like you did. So speaking of things that have happened, City Council over the last few years, I feel, taking Mr. Hildner's definition, have bullied citizens. I'm probably sitting almost close to the spot where there was several tenants that were, in my opinion, bullied by City Council after the city bought this property and told to move. Also, kind of during that same vein, Jerry Herman, who was running a program at the Rainy Collector water tower over by the McLaughlin Bridge, was, in my opinion, bullied and made to vacate. So in that vein, I know we've tried to have orientations, we've had training. But it continues, and even amongst ourselves. I'm not sure what Councilor Neese was talking about in regards to a letter, but it's possible that I might have misspoke or did something wrong. But as I mentioned earlier, there was bullying that occurred, like say, city council wide. Myself, Mayor Simple, when she was mayor-elect, was bullied by city councilors and a former city administrator, yelled at, screamed. It was so bad that a sergeant from the police department came over to see what the issue was. So I did take the wording because I knew it was approved by our city attorney from last month's resolution, because I feel that bullying and it was kind of like what city council was trying to do last month. Hadn't given this really much thought, so there wasn't a lot of sit down. And I don't know, talking about a lot of discussion amongst the community in last month's resolution, maybe amongst a small special interests. I don't know, because I wasn't involved in any of that. But true, I didn't, like say, rally the troops. Not a lot of prolonged discussion, because up until last month, I didn't believe that we were doing resolutions. But as I mentioned earlier, city councils changed their mind. And so with that, I hope that you understand that this is about bullying, that we need to maybe start here with use this as a jumping off point and make our community better. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Mercero.
I was no before this session. After the 9 persons presentation, plus another documentation that I received, the presentations they made me undoubtedly know. That's all.
All right, Councilor Ripley.
Okay, there we go. I have no questions. I think the community's spoken pretty well on this one. So I have no questions.
All right, thank you. Councilor Tracy.
I'll do what I can to make this short. So I know Councilor Reisner only for 3 years now, working with him on the council. I hope I know his heart well enough to think that, or to know that he didn't intend this to be racist or to be a racist statement. But I am concerned about the intent. I'm also concerned about the wording. I think we probably wouldn't be able to pass this resolution as it stands. I'm looking at the grammatical errors, including a couple words that don't necessarily work in the title. But I think we were trying to make a serious attempt last month to do something that was actionable. And I felt like we brought the community together to do that. And if it's an affront to someone on this council or anyone on the council, I'd ask them to go back and really take a self-assessment, because if a person or people are asking for equity and to be treated with the same standard as everyone else, and that's offensive to you, you have a major problem. And you have a major problem certainly in today's day and age. We all need to educate ourselves. I'm a privileged white male, highly educated. Yes, I worked for it. But, you know, the reality is that's who I am in this society. And I'm also a politician. And folks don't always speak highly of politicians. I don't know if anybody's noticed that recently. And I don't look at it as bullying. If somebody comes out in a social media context or on the street and talks to me in a non-threatening manner, but is disagreeing with me, I don't consider that bullying. And I think that we probably have folks that are on this council that need to understand that just because somebody opposes your opinion or has a different opinion, that's not bullying, especially to an elected official. We all do what we can here. And there were long months of people suffering in our worst conditions that this country's ever probably existed in, separate of maybe Civil War, World War II. This has been pretty bad for folks. But they still pulled together in our community to talk about making an effort to include everyone in the community. And I didn't hear anything from this council. In fact, I will have to say that when I was at the BLM march, I was hearing from children about being bullied in our school district. And I remember the mayor wasn't there. She was there for the march, but she wasn't there for the dialogue. And I stepped up and tried to talk to folks who were very actively engaged in the conversation and very emotional because their children had been bullied in our school district. I was horrified. And that's why I reached out to our community and asked, what can I do? And to me, you know, Resolution 1188 is an affront to those folks getting together and starting to talk not only to their elected officials, but to their neighbors. I know people who now have friendships that have spawned from the BLM march and subsequent conversations after the march. And for us to pass the resolution last month and then turn around and put this resolution on the books, or try to, is a personal affront to those folks who have suffered far too long already. It's time for this city, along with the United States of America, and frankly, look at what the votes are looking like across the nation and look who are filling the seats, and I'm very happy to see it. It's time for us to grow up and move on. If you're too delicate to take some abuse or a little bit of offensive, you know, banter or what have you, get the hell off the city council. I will be saying no to this. I would prefer that Neil Reisner pull this on his own, because I do believe that he doesn't want bullying, but I think it's the wrong context, it's the wrong time, and I think it was an answer, frankly, a middle finger to our community who decidedly put together a resolution and wanted it passed and got it passed with one no vote in opposition. I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Councillor Todd?
Well, yeah, I want to follow that one, but I'm definitely against this. I'm hoping that Councilor Reisner didn't think this through. I'm hoping, I don't think he wants this to be the blight on his years of service. At one point, he had defined himself as an old white guy, and then he went back and said privileged old white guy. Right in there, it comes from the privilege, because if you are a white guy, you're privileged. It doesn't have to be added. You just are. So I think that this maybe came about without a lot of thought to that, and there can be some good stuff that can come from it. I'd love to have a real discussion about our schools, bullying, things that are happening there, but we can't do that without reaching out to the school district, to our superintendent, to the victims of bullying, which are school-age children. Anything beyond that, this just comes across as very suspect and reactionary, and I'm a hard no, so.
All right, thank you. I think that was it for the counselors. So I guess the first piece of confusion I have here is that it's being referred to as an All Lives Matter document or statement, and I don't see that anywhere in that document. I see that it's condemning mistreatment and bullying of everybody. And there's a misconception that this is brand new, that this is something that's just been brought up. And I have to assure you that is not correct. November of 2016, the bullying, harassment, and intimidation of adults in the city staff here was so severe that then City Administrator Eric Swanson had to make a statement and condemn it, define it, and give actionable items of what would happen if it continued. So this is something that's been going on for at least the time that I've been mayor, and I'm assuming way before then. When I became mayor, citizens reached out to me and asked if we could have groups to come together and talk about the bullying that was happening. And it was not just kids, it was adults too. And just because we're an adult does not mean that you can't be bullied, because that is absolutely not true. And I see Matt Tracy smiling and giggling there. Well, I'm sorry, but adults get bullied too. I had people in those outreach events that were small children to old people, older adults, all of them being bullied in some way or another. So this is something that's been discussed for quite some time. I'm not saying that this is the right document for it, but it's definitely a conversation that we've been having. There were some people that were going to lead the charge, but unfortunately life happens and that wasn't able to happen at that time. But it needs to be discussed. It's a separate item. If bullying is a problem, intimidation is a problem, aggressive intimidation is a problem. And I don't care if you're an elected official or not. It's not appropriate and it should never be acceptable. So anyway, that's my take on it. I'm assuming someone wants to make a motion then on this one.
Yes, Madam Mayor, I'd be glad to. I make a motion to approve Resolution 1188 condemning mistreatment and bullying directed at all people withstanding of their color, sex, national origin, sexual orientation, or age, and affirming the City of Gladstone's commitment to equity.
Do I have a second? Do I have a second? Nope, I do not have a second. So we will table this one and maybe bring it up at another time. Thank you very much for all your time, Councilor Reisner, on this one. Next item is, excuse me, was someone going to say anything?
I just wanted to thank you.
All right, thank you. Next item is board appointments of boards, committees, and commissions for January of 2021. It looks like we have 18 applications for 25 openings. I know that what I would like to do, because it's nice to have full boards, and this time around we're going to do something a little bit different where we're going to have interviews for the people that are interested, and we had discussed that those interviews were going to be held by the liaison to that committee, the mayor, council president, I believe, and I don't remember who the other person was that was going to be involved in that. So what I would like to do, since we have 3 new council members coming on and the liaison positions are going to be changing, that we hold this over until January and leave it open so that we can hopefully elicit some more applicants. So staff, would you like to make any comments on this one?
No, actually, we've still been getting quite a bit of interest. So I do think it's very important that we keep the application process open. We're very excited to have 18 applicants. Many are new applicants for the city that want to get involved. It would be helpful to understand when you would like to have a closing date and whether or not the new council wants to talk about this on January 12th or wait until their retreat on January 22nd.
Okay, thank you. Counselor to counselor, Counselor Neese, do you have a preference or a comment?
No, I think you should hold it over until the first of the year with the new council.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Reisner?
I'm with Councilor Neese. Should probably wait till next year.
Okay, Counselor Mercero?
it needs to be held over for the next year when there's nearly the majority. It's actually 42.8%, but at this point, that's nearly half the council will be gone, and they won't be responsible for what damage they may have done.
That's one way to look at it. All right, Councilor Ripley.
I'll let peer pressure dictate and I'll go with the flow.
Councilor Tracy.
I agree for the holdover.
Councilor Todd.
I'd like to hold it over, but I'd like to hold it over till we have a chance to talk about it during the our strategic planning session. And I'd also like to have a discussion about the liaison positions. So if we can talk about that then too.
Okay, well, I would like to put it on the agenda for our January meeting, and then if the majority of the council agrees, then we'll hold it over to the strategic planning session, if that works. So I'd like to have it as a placeholder on the January 8th or whatever, 12th, whatever the January meeting is.
I think it's a good idea with what Councilor Todd had to say. I think you should hold it over until the 12th at the strategic meeting and discuss it there.
Okay, so you state not to discuss it at our January meeting, but wait till the strategic planning meeting.
Yes.
Okay.
And you're going to have a different, maybe the same council president, maybe not, and you'll have liaisons. And so I think it would be more appropriate at that time to have further discussion, especially on your interviewing.
All right. Okay. Well,
the 25th, right? Or the 20 something that we're doing the strategic planning.
The
correct?
22nd and 23rd of January is your council retreat.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought it was sooner than that.
no, our meeting is sooner than that. All right. Well, maybe what we'll do is just get a consensus then instead of do a vote. Councilor Nisa, you say to hold it over until the strategic planning meeting?
I thought the strategic planning meeting was sooner. So I would say go ahead and put it at your city meeting.
Okay. Yeah, because I think Jackie, the budget, which are the ones that were really coming up against a timeline?
I think that we're going to be okay with the current people that we have on our committees. If you're going to do interviews, then you really need to know who the new council liaison appointments are going to be. We can certainly talk about it, and I can get more guidance in January 12th. I think that we should go ahead and do a deadline of December 31st for applications, and then try to put an interview process together for us to talk about at the January 12th meeting.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Okay, Councilor Reisner.
I'm not going to be here, so whatever you guys decide.
Well, if you give me an answer, then I can put you on the tally, so we can. So January 12th or strategic planning?
Let's go 12th.
Okay.
Why not?
And leave it open till the 31st of December?
Well, I think this, to be honest with you, this ball, can's been kicked down the road for over a year, as most of the committees, commissions and stuff haven't really been fully, seated, or, they've had vacancies for most of the year. So I'd say sooner than later, and fill in, if they're not fully, I don't want to say staff, that's not the right word. Don't have, if they're not full, then keep advertising it until they are.
Okay.
My suggestion.
Councilor Mercero?
I believe that the new counselors will have lots to learn. However, this is a good exercise to get started on. And you need to do a bit of investigation on these people for the boards and committees. And I recommend you get in there and do it as soon as possible.
Okay, so the city meeting on the 12th then?
That'd be fine with me.
Okay, Councilor Ripley?
Yeah, I think the 12th would work also for me. You know, the can's been kicked down the road and it's still kind of getting kicked because we haven't really had the time to do anything. We actually need to sit down and actually have the plan for it and figure out what we're doing. Might help us out in knowing what we're going to do.
All right, thank you. Counselor Tracy.
I believe it should be up to the new council, and I think that we probably should discuss the liaison appointments as well. So I'm kind of there with Tracy Todd and her comments.
All right, and then Counselor Todd. So do you want to just, you still want to hold it over till the strategic planning, or?
I would prefer that, but if the consensus is that we put it on the agenda for the January meeting, and then we're still going to have to discuss it at the strategic planning. I mean, I'm assuming, or with the liaisons and all of that. If you need it as a placeholder to push that forward, but it seems like we always have enough on the agenda anyways, you know, to not need filler, but whatever the consensus is.
Yeah, and I'm going to say the January 12th meeting also, because we need to get moving on it. And like Councilor Mercer said, it's a good exercise. You hit the ground running, and here you go. Here's your first big task. Figure out the appointments. All right, so we'll put it on the January 12th agenda, Jackie.
Okay, in the meantime, I am going to make a packet for the 3 new council elects and the current 4 that will be remaining on the council, so that everybody can start reviewing the applications over the holidays.
All right, thank you. All right, next, let me find all my papers here. Next is business from the audience, and I believe we have 3 people that would like to speak. So Tammy, could you call them forward, please?
Yes, the first is Angela Riley.
Oh, excuse me. Yeah, go ahead, and then I'll do business carried forward. Sorry.
Accountability, an obligation or willingness to accept responsibility or to account for one's actions. Merriam-Webster. What I want to see is the mayor operate in an inclusive and collaborative way and be accountable for her behaviors. To have change, it needs to start at the top. Prove that you're fit to lead. Willing to listen to your citizens and put our interests and those of Gladstone above your own. The methods that we've seen. Starting rumors using fake accounts on social media. Using the newspaper to write articles disparaging and lying about your own council and the workings of it. Putting others up to the same. Allowing and encouraging public hate speech by your family against citizens, the Hateful Eight. Not acknowledging or protecting the most vulnerable of your citizens when asked. Wasting city resources on frivolous attacks against others, some your own councilors and citizens. Using multiple city resources for personal gain. Creating a paid position for your spouse where none existed. Using powers not within your authority. Making unilateral decisions without your council's knowledge and also not within your authority. Purposeful exclusion of some while handpicking others for events and activities. Creating a toxic environment in City Hall. Calling me and others bullies for stating these facts. Gaslighting to make yourself a victim. Claiming that you've been bullied when asked for accountability for these specific behaviors. This needs to stop. It's time to collaborate with your council and your citizens, and identifying inequities and abuses of power is a part of accountability. Calling this out is not bullying. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Next is Tracy Hill.
Hello again. I would like to take this opportunity to read you a post created by Debbie Lum Nelson, who is the sister of our mayor, Tammy Stimple. Quote, "All right, to all my Facebook friends and family, Gladstone seems to have a bit of a problem within their city. There is a group of 8 people, we will call them the Hateful Eight, and that is being kind. Some are running for office and some are already in office. This group of people feel they have the right to harass, threaten, and follow the mayor and other city officials to try and intimidate them. They have also released the addresses to the BLM cell that is in Gladstone that just recently vandalized some properties. If you know anyone who lives in Gladstone, you might want to pass the names on to them that I'm about to give you, because if any one of these get in office, it might be like another Portland. I can tell you firsthand that if you don't believe in what they do, then you're a racist and affiliated with the KKK. The Hateful Eight: Angela Riley, the troll; Candy Carlson, girlfriend of Counselor Matt Tracy; and the witch; Marna Barnes, the wackadoo; Ben Hildner, the white BLM zealot with the savior complex; Jim James doesn't even live in Gladstone, the purveyor of lies; Counselor Tracy Todd, the extreme narcissist and puppet for Matt Tracy; Counselor Matt Tracy, Metro manager with an extreme Portland-centric agenda, the wicked; and Anessa Hartman, running for council, the ringleader of our BLM terrorist cell, claims her New York Native American ancestors are giving her the authority to use our city logo in her campaign, so people think she is representing and being endorsed by the city. There are some less important members, but these are the Hateful Eight in a nutshell. Get the word out. I would hate to see Gladstone go downhill," unquote. One of the more troublesome comments on that post is as follows, quote, "We should do another cruise through Gladstone, go up and down every street," unquote. This is your sister's post, Mayor. Why didn't you stop this intentional character assassination? Why didn't you ask her to take this post down? Shouldn't you, as a leader in our community, be the first to want to protect your very own colleagues and community members? These are very serious claims, and yet you claim to be the victim of bullying. Thank you.
All right, next.
Last is Leslie Myers.
Well, hello. I just have a question, and that is, as a nurse practitioner and as a member of the community, I want to know how many COVID cases we have in this city. And the last I was told it was 40, and I wanted to know, first of all, what it is now, and secondly, if there's any plan to share this information with the community.
Are we waiting for an answer? Can somebody speak up to the question?
There's a website from Oregon Health Authority, I believe, which is COVID cases by zip code, and that is the most defined that you can get because of HIPAA. I access it via Oregon Live. So that's where you would need to go to get those numbers.
Thank you.
I know it's been going up. Anything else, Leslie?
Well, I also wondered if there was any way to inform the community of how much it's gone up.
I'll have staff get back to you because I'm not sure what we can release and what we can't release because of HIPAA.
Mayor Stemple, I'm happy to check in with our emergency managers and provide Ms. Myers the accurate data. We can get her email address and get her set up so she knows how to check that information.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Great, thank you very much. So I accidentally passed over business carried forward. Do we have any business carried forward, Jackie?
I have nothing. Thank you.
All right, so then it's business from the council, and I'll start with Councilor Neese.
Yes, I would just like to, I apologize for not being there this evening. I had planned on being on the dais tonight, but unfortunately, my husband is in the hospital and we have had a couple of heart operations this week. And so it's been a great stream running back and forth. So I have written a statement I would like to read. First, I'd like to say it has been an honor to represent the residents of Gladstone these past few years, and a pleasure to serve on the council. Serving on the Planning Commission led me to run for council to help move Gladstone forward and reach out and reach our goals for a new Gladstone Library and Civic Center, which I may be leaving the council. While I may be leaving the council, my heart remains here in Gladstone. Unfortunately, the last few years have been marred by harassment I've endured by certain individuals in this community. I own the mistakes I have made and I apologized for them. While I know I'm not perfect, it has been painful to receive the treatment from those who, despite having far more significant blogs on their own records, to continue to throw stones. I welcome newly elected City Councilor Anessa Hartman, and I wish her the best as she starts her service to our city. The other two newly elected council members I feel less enthusiastic about, as they have continuously participated in hurtful rumor mongering about myself and other council members and candidates. They may find themselves on the receiving end of this kind of attention, having joined the ranks of public officials subject to continuous public scrutiny and gossip. I hope being on the receiving end teaches them how to be more compassionate towards others, less judgmental before hearing all sides and learning all the facts. To the mayor, I'd like to say that a key part of being a leader is learning to work with all members of the council, regardless of your personal feelings about them. The hostile council environment that you have cultivated has been noticed by the community and has led many residents not to want to be involved. Empathy, self-awareness, listening, and respect for alternate points of view are vital to a strong council and a vibrant, inclusive city. I hope that you will consider this and become a better leader. Finally, I would like to say thank you to our city administrator, Jackie Betts, for her hard work and dedication to Gladstone. Jackie and her staff provide the professional and stability that our city needs. I hope the incoming council members will recognize and appreciate that. Thank you all, and God bless. And I'm going to miss you, but I will still be around, and I wish all of you the best. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Todd.
Oh, good, I'm unmuted. I just want to thank Linda, Tom, and Neil for everything that they have done with their service to our community. I would say probably across the board, if we were like looking at sort of where we were on a continuum of how we view politics, we're probably nowhere near each other. But I've always, especially with Linda and with Tom, they've always reached out to me, and I've always felt like I've been able to work with them. And even though we probably don't always vote the same outside of this, they were always respectful and brought me in when I was the scared person who just sort of went, what did I do? So I just want to say thank you very much, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you. Okay. Councilor Tracy.
Thank you, Mayor, and to Councilor Reisner, Councilor Mercereau, and Councilor Neese, I too thank you for your guidance. Appreciate working with y'all and have learned a lot from all three of you. To our community, I am very pleased to see folks reaching out to us, engaging in dialogue, knowing that we might have opposing opinion, opposing views. feeling safe to reach out to us, even though we might have opposing views. I really appreciate just the conversations I've had with the community. This last 6 months has taught me a lot about community reaching out to each other, building their own community. And in 6 months, we've done a lot to really kind of change our community here, and I think for the better. Big props and appreciation out to both our fire and police staffs. You know, the fire department over the last 6 months continues to just impress me. I've seen them do amazing things. Chief Schmerber, your folks, I've interacted with a few of your officers recently. I've seen them, more importantly, I've seen them interact with our community members, and I've seen nothing but respect towards the community members and just the interactions. And even when they're trying to correct somebody into compliance, I've seen respect coming from them. And I can't tell you how much that means to me after I've witnessed some of our other spare cities that surround us and not seeing the same type of respect paid to their citizens. So thank you for leading your department like that, and to Chief Huffman as well. This is tough. All of this that we're going through is really hard, and I feel like people can learn and get on. It doesn't mean that you agree with everything, but I think that this is a learning moment and a teachable moment for all of us. And I do believe that the leadership in this city has to rise above what's happening at kind of the ground level. If people are scrapping at each other, we don't do ourselves or our community any good if we continue that. So thank you to all the citizens who've spoken out. Thank you to all the citizens who've emailed me, contacted me, and texted me or called me. I'm still listening to you, and I still want to work with you to make this the best city that we can make it. Thank you.
Councilor Ripley.
I don't have anything. I think all the rest of the council has done a pretty good job summing stuff up. I do really appreciate everybody that has called in tonight. It's a little bit nicer having a meeting where you have a bunch of people talking and showing up than when you have a meeting with city councilors and 2 people in the audience. It gets kind of boring. So everybody else's involvement is greatly appreciated, and we'll see y'all next month.
All right, thank you. Councilor Mercero.
Thanks for the last 8 years as a counselor. I've learned a lot. I started in the Planning Commission about 5 years before that. I may put my application to do that some more. The Planning Commission is a fairly difficult task also. But it's needed to help the city grow. I want to say good luck to the newly elected councilors. Trust me from experience, there's a lot to learn, a lot to read before you really know what you can do and what you can't do. And last but not least, Merry Christmas to all and remain healthy. I'm hoping on the vaccine to get rid of this pandemic. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councilor Reisner.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. One thing that I have mentioned to several people, well, one is thank you. It has been also an honor serving you here, even though as even tonight, witness that we don't always agree, but we're cordial, no name calling, that kind of thing. I kind of wish that we did have an opportunity to have a proper send-off of the old City Hall, but COVID didn't allow us to do that. And I really appreciate City Administrator Betts' suggestion that we were given an opportunity to have our last meeting and first time that we got to sit up here and say hello and then also goodbye at the same time. And so I want to thank you for also want to say I've appreciated you over the last few years. I know that I had huge questions about you coming to the city but you've always been professional and kindness, and have always had a, I don't want to say, kind of a, personal concern for me. And so I'm, and I've seen it with not only the other counselors, but staff, and it's filtered down. Speaking of that, I want to thank staff, the ones here at City Hall. I'm really glad that we were able to work through things. And again, as my fellow high school government teacher can probably attest to, that democracy is about compromise. I wanted, to be honest with you, this last night, if I've had my way, would have been at the old City Hall site where we would have tore down and rebuilt. But I saw the need, and I say compromise. And I'm really glad that we were able to give staff and the citizens this beautiful building, along with the police department. So I thank the City Hall staff that have just done great things. Public Works, as Councilor Ripley mentioned, saw them out in front of his house today. I saw them last week sweeping down my street, and they've been vacuuming also, and taking care of leaks and this and that. The parks, gosh, Rex McIntyre, I knew him back when he worked for the school district. So thank you for those in Public Works. Real nice lady over here, Tammy Bannock. Here, I remember walking in the door back 30 years ago when I moved into town. And so she's only 35. And she was running, she was running the city then, and now she still is. And it's just great having awesome people helping us out. Our library staff, though it's now county, they bear great over the years. Senior Center also. As I'm getting older, I'll probably be spending more time there. And as mentioned, the police department, with John and the crew, they really care about our community. And as Councilor Tracy just mentioned, it shows. And I've had an opportunity to hang out with them. And our fire department is above reproach. I mean, they're just awesome. My son Justin was a member for many years, so I got to know them. And I'm sure Tom can attest the kindness that they showed our family, and helping my wife through her illness was just great. Along with Mike Funk, our fire marshal. Shoot, he started with the fire department when he was in high school, and it's just great. Our citizens have these people to rely on. Glad to see that we've got a new, well, it's going to be a county library, but eventually it'll be back in the city. Library coming down the road, the Civic Center. And I want to thank Mrs. Hartman for stepping up, along with Mr. Alexander and Mrs. Garlington, for going to be, hopefully eventually sooner than later, sitting up here making decisions. So thank you guys for doing that. And as Tom alluded to, the last 8 years have really been interesting. And like him, I was on planning before that, school board even before that. And I want to thank Tom and Linda for their service, their years, making decisions. And yeah, sometimes we didn't agree on things, but we were always cordial. And I guess in closing, it's been an honor to serve you as a counselor. And want to wish you a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and be safe. So thank you.
Great, thank you. As usual, I have a couple things. As I stated last month, the food pantry is going through some changes right now that are going to have a pretty big impact on our community. Because of new COVID safety restrictions, loss of our director, the loss of, well, the minimal donations, and a loss of some pretty significant volunteers. We've been struggling. We've had to find a new location. So we are relocating to the Hillside Christian Fellowship Church, portables off of Glen Echo. That's what we're doing this month. I don't know exactly what the final move-in date is going to be. It's going to be great because it's going to be a safer location, safer queue for the people that are driving up to get boxes. It's going to be a better location, I think. Keeping traffic off the street is going to be a big plus for the neighborhood. We're not able to do the weekly drive-up deliveries, but we were able to find a way to deliver, well, to provide food prior to Thanksgiving, and we served 260 families. Going from the shopping model where we were between 55 and 70 families to 260 and growing is tremendous. The need is huge. We're still, even though we're still going to try and do a delivery before Christmas, but it just depends on logistics, on us moving. Even though we're not doing the weekly, we're still delivering to the homebound seniors. We're still doing GCCF support, and we're servicing about 100 families that are in COVID quarantine right now and not able to get out. So we are still doing what we can, but we need volunteers, we need donations. So many people are stuck behind the keyboards, but I encourage and challenge everybody to get up and help where you can, because this makes a huge difference in our community. December 3rd, the League of Oregon Cities provided an all-day workshop for elected officials, and this covers ethics, legal, procedural aspects of being your elected official. Staff did a great job shuffling people around, so we were able to do it in person as much as we could. And it was great this year because we actually had staff and department heads participate. So they were able to kind of see through our eyes what we have to go through. And some of the issues did pertain to them as well, but it was a really good gathering, and we were able to ask questions of each other. It was good. And I hope there's a couple that weren't able to make it because of scheduling. So I hope that they offered again, because it's really worthwhile. Things change constantly, and I learned that definitely on the 3rd. So we all need to keep up to date on all of that stuff. COVID numbers are going up, as you all know, and I can't stress enough to please follow safety protocol, wear a mask, social distance, wash your hands. If you have symptoms, please quarantine. Our first responders so far are staying stocked up on their PPE, but with the COVID numbers going up and the supply chain struggling, we may have problems unless we can get a handle on it. So please follow protocol and stay safe. This year's holiday tree lighting event was not able to happen because of COVID. So I purposefully did not decorate the tree in hopes that some people would step up and help decorate it, but nobody did. So I would like to thank my husband for taking time out of his schedule, kicking and screaming, to try and figure out why 6 strings of LED lights weren't working, and then to go and buy more lights to decorate the tree. So it's up. Thank you very much, Kirk. And hopefully next year we can have it in person. And I want to tell you, anybody that wants to volunteer to help decorate it, you need to wear a suit of armor, because that thing is so sharp. It's awful. So that's for next time. As far as a liaison, Parks and Rec, we are not having a meeting this week. Our meeting is next week because of the way the calendar fell this month. We are going to be saying goodbye to 4 very dedicated Parks and Rec people. It's been an honor serving with them as their liaison. I've learned so much from these people. And I learned how important it is to respect and listen to our advisory groups. I would like to thank Councilors Linda Neese, Tom Mercero, and Neil Reisner for their service to the city. It's not easy, it's unpaid, and it's thankless so much of the time. You know, being a target is hard and it breaks people down, but so many good things have been accomplished, and that rests on your shoulders as well. And the good things are what's going to be remembered. So thank you. And people in the audience there may notice that we have 2 counselors sitting on the dais, and as you probably figured out, it's because it's their last meeting. And I want to thank them, and the city is providing them with some beautiful plaques. So while Jackie is handing them out, I'm going to read you a little bit for Linda Neese. The City of Gladstone and City Council expresses their sincere appreciation to Linda Neese for outstanding service to the Gladstone community. As a member of the Gladstone City Council from May 2016 to December 2020, Planning Commission from May 13th, 2015 to April 26th, 2016, Budget Committee December 8th, 2015 to April 26th, 2016, and Traffic Safety Commission from 2015 to April 26th, 2016. Thank you very, very much for your service. Next, the City of Gladstone and City Council expresses their sincere appreciation to Neil Reisner for outstanding service to the Gladstone community as a member of the Gladstone City Council from January 2013 to December 2020, Planning Commission from October of 1990 to May of 1993, and then reappointed August of 1999 to December of 2012. Budget Committee from December of 2011 to December of 2012, and the Parks and Rec Board from August of 1990 to August of 1991. Thank you, Neil. That's a lot of stuff. We need to get you on some more committees. The City of Gladstone expresses their sincere appreciation to Tom Mercero for outstanding service to the Gladstone community as a member of the Gladstone City Council from January of 2016 to December of 2020, Mayor from April 2016 to December of 2016, and Planning Commission from 2007 to 2012. Thank you. And also, again, we would like to sign you up for a whole lot of boards and commissions. So thank you guys very much for all of your work. The community is a better place because of it. So in closing, I want to wish everybody happy holiday and hope for an amazing 2021. We need to move forward and be safe, everyone. So would someone please make a motion to adjourn?
Yes, if I may, for the last time, I move that we adjourn.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Motion was made to adjourn by Councilor Reisner, seconded by Councilor Neese. Do we have any discussion? Tammy, could you do a roll call vote, please?
Councilor Ripley,
Yes.
Councilor Neese,
Yes.
Councilor Tracy,
Aye.
Councilor Reisner,
Yes.
Councilor Todd,
Yes.
Councilor Mercero,
Yes.
Mayor Stemple.
Yes, meeting adjourned at 9:03 p.m. Thank you, everybody.